And here we have Beth Rigby from Sky News doing her very, very best to try and get up Kier Starmer's nose just for a couple of minutes. And in this minute and a half clip that you're about to see here, this is Beth Rigby being allowed to go off the leash officially by Sky and no doubt by Mr. Starmer's handlers. And within a minute and a half, I think we do get a little bit of entertainment there, particularly the eye movements and how she verbalises her questions. She can be an attack dog at times, can be Beth Rigby, but in moments like this, she is very good, and this is what she gets paid for.
PM, you promised to end the chaos when you were elected, but since the summer we've had winter fuel U-turn, welfare U-turn, Rayner's resignation, Mandelson's sacking, Andy Burnham's leadership drama, the Wes Street in number 10 showdown, pitch rolling and income tax rises only to U-turn. You haven't ended chaos, you are the chaos.
Look, every minute that we're not talking about the cost of living is a wasted minute.
But this is chaos.
But at the same time, we have delivered free childcare for children between 9 months and 4 years. That's a game changer for children when they're in their education, and for parents. Only yesterday we were rolling out the extension of free breakfast clubs. We're freezing prescription charges. We're maintaining the cap on bus fares.
So none of the stuff that I've just mentioned, that you're just going to gloss over that and not acknowledge that this is chaotic.
No, I'm not. But I'm really conscious of the fact that what the majority of people want to know is, if my number one issue is paying the bills and making sure I can make ends meet, what are you doing about that? And that's why it's important for me to say these are the measures we're taking.
Are you let me put it another way. Are you disappointed about what's been going on in your Downing Street since September?
I think that every minute that we're not bearing down on cost of living is a wasted minute.
And, what sprung out at me from that meeting? Well, first of all, one thing was the limited nature of our mainstream media. A lot of the time when we're watching these interviews, most of the time anyway, there's a respectful tone, and they aren't smashed. If it's not Nigel Farage, of course, if it's anybody from Reform, then they get different treatment in general ways, I would say. But when a lot of the time when people are granted interviews with Kier Starmer, they don't like to act like Beth Rigby did just there. But the the people at number 10, and no doubt Kier Starmer, understand that if you are never exposed to that type of thing, then questions are then asked. Look, you never do any hardball interviews, and these continual softball interviews, they're just not good. And so for that reason, MPs, particularly people at the very top of the tree, they have to have these type of hardball interviews periodically. And also they need to be trained as well for the next election cycle, because that's not pretty when they're put under the cosh at that moment. So if they can't handle it now, they're not going to be able to handle it then. And so for that reason, they do find themselves in these types of very abrasive, combative interviews, and that's just the life of an MP. So boo-hoo for them. The thing that the main thing that hit me from that was in how Keir Starmer attempted to mount a defence of himself. Now, you might think that he had a few options open to him. He could have talked about the actual issue at hand and said, well, okay, let's look at each of those individual points in turn, shall we? If you're going to bring up all of these points, Beth, then it's important then to allow the space and time for us to discuss each individual point that you've brought up. And so let's look at point number 1, the winter fuel allowance. Well, we listened, blah, 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 blah. And this is how normal MPs attempt to get through interviews of that nature. They tend to try and sound logical, and what they do is they can approach head on and go, okay, what are you asking me? Here's my opinion then, and that's how it's done, but not with the Starmer droid, because when you're dealing with the Starmer droid, malfunctions can happen, and you saw the malfunction there. He was put under pressure by Beth Rigby, and under a lot of pressure, a head thrusting in his direction saying, you are the chaos, are you not? And look at all of these things that you've done, and, just smashing him repeatedly over the head. And what was Keir Starmer's defence? Well, Keir Starmer's defence was to start repeating a certain set of lines or code within his brain over and over. So he started repeating the successes, or the apparent successes, that Labour have achieved since they've come in. Now, you could say, okay, breakfast clubs, is that a success or not? Many people label it as a success. I think it's a retrograde step in some respects and takes responsibility away from parents, but obviously you don't want children to be hungry either, and so that is a difficult one, but it's something that, you know, Labour have done. But regardless of that, you can't just start repeating past experiences, because that's not answering the question. That's just going into blitzkrieg mode, like, you know, where, you know, the tortoise pulls all extremities out of view and behind the shell. That's Keir Starmer's version of going back in the shell, and it's a useless style because it looks as if he's easy meat. He looks like a small boy in a chair in front of the headmaster, and he is just not able to communicate effectively. So he isn't able to field questions of that nature and turn them into something that's going to make him look good, like some politicians can do. So some politicians can turn any question that you ask them into an opportunity to let you know about how wonderful they are, and this is just what politicians do. But watching the Starmer droid there try and get through some quite difficult questions, I thought was very telling in more ways than one. But more than anything else, I don't think we are dealing with Keir Starmer. I don't think we are dealing with somebody that's special at all. I don't think we're dealing with some very, very clever subversive figure who's going to bring in all of his plans, you know, that he's secretly been thinking about since birth. I don't think there's any of that at all. I think the simple truth of it is that Keir Starmer wakes up day to day and just hangs on to this job. He's never taken hold of it. And even when you look at him in interviews there, you see how embarrassing he is. You know, sometimes people move into a role and the role is too big for them. They just aren't able to fulfill the criteria. You know, they're not big enough for the role. And Keir Starmer is a perfect demonstration of that very point there. A PM, a Prime Minister, is a big job. It requires a big person, and sadly, it's not Keir Starmer. And, you know, just reverting back to desperation, Starmer droid, just quickly, repeat everything that I've been taught. Repeat everything that I've been taught is really, really bad form, I think. And, you know, he's not a very good politician. He's just not very good at this stuff. So, you know, it's zero sympathy for the man, I'm afraid. Thanks very much for your time.